Hi, everyone. Welcome to Making It on Monday. And today we've got a special guest. We've got Carmen Cooper. Hi, Carmen.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. We've been teeing this up for a little while, so it's quite nice to finally get to do it today.
Yeah, we sure
Yeah.
have. It's great to have
Yeah.
you here. And Carmen is a fertility naturopath and nutritionist. And I guess to start off with, maybe if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, Carmen, and sort of what drives your passion for reproductive health.
Yeah. So, becoming a naturopath was actually my second career. And to be really honest, I set about studying naturopathy because I do come from a fairly long line of, or fairly family history, I should say, of mental health, addiction, Alzheimer's, dementia, kind of just general chronic illness. I mean, we've all kind of got our stuff. But for me, I was sort of really driven by that. And I was also an inquisitive kid. Like I was one of those kids that if I had a headache, I'd want to know why. I mean, before I took the I would always go and take the Panadol, but I'd always be wondering, what is it? Why do I have a headache and how can I kind of fix it? And I also have endometriosis and I have lived with that from a very young age. So I was actually diagnosed at the age of 13.
Yeah.
So as I was heading into my years of thinking about
And
having a
that's really
family,
unusual. Like that must have been pretty bad
very,
to be diagnosed at that.
very, I thought
Yeah.
as a 13-year-old, I thought I'd just eaten ice cream for dessert. And then the excruciating pain I experienced, I thought I had frozen my insides with ice cream. Like that's kind of what went through my head at the time. And then
Yeah.
it was so excruciating and so unbearable. And I had been menstruating. I sort of started menstruating at the age of 10. So everything was kind of really early and yes, unusual. But anyway, diagnosed with that. Been kind of living with it most of my life.
Yeah.
So certainly as I was heading into my years of thinking about having a family for myself, I just, in knowing what I knew in my heart to be true in terms of the person that I was, I just knew that there had to be a better way than what I was currently doing
Yeah.
with my endo especially and all the other things in terms of what I'd endured and seen as a child.
Yeah.
So I wanted to learn about it. And as I
Yeah.
started studying, my eyes were kind of really opened up to the complexities of reproductive health. And also, I guess, in my learning, watching the emerging prevalence of childhood disease, I
Yeah.
just decided that that's where I wanted to be. I'm actually even getting goosebumps reminiscing around it
Mhm.
because I care really deeply about the health of our future generation.
Yeah.
And
I
especially
think
now as, hey?
yeah, you go.
Oh, and especially now as I have a funny little 5-year-old living
Yeah.
in this world,
Yeah.
I just love being able to help individuals and families
Mm.
achieve their hopes and dreams of having a healthy family, basically just in the
Mm.
same way that I wanted one.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I
Yeah.
think there's a couple of things which kind of blow people's mind around fertility that they don't necessarily always think about. And I'm so excited to be talking to you about them. And I think
Mhm.
like the first one is that, it takes like 3 months for like an egg or a sperm to be
Mm.
made, and everything you do in that 3 months actually really impacts.
Matters. Yeah.
And the second thing is that actually it's not just about getting pregnant. It's the
Mm.
health of that sperm and that egg and everything you do in that 3 months
Yeah.
actually impacts that future child's
That's
health
right.
outcome, how healthy they're going to be, your pregnancy, but also, how healthy your baby's going to be and your child's going to
Yeah.
be. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of people don't, I think that kind of blows a lot of people's minds. They hadn't kind of put it quite
They
together.
hadn't thought about that. That's right. And to be honest with you, it's so true what you say. I often say that to my patients when I'm seeing them for the first time. I'm so passionate about not only just getting you pregnant, but this is also, we're talking about the future health of your child. And then you're right, they do take stock and then they become far more fully invested as
Yeah.
well, which is
And
amazing. Yeah.
and preconception care, it's not just about taking, your folate,
Yeah.
and having
It's a
sex on the
whole
right
gamut.
days, but, preconception care is really like that's like the biggest investment you can make
Pivotal.
in
Totally.
terms of your
Yeah.
child, your family and your child's health for
That's
both
right.
partners or both the
Mhm.
semen and the egg.
Eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
anyway, I think I've
absolutely.
kind of like jumped the gun in terms of like the kind of stuff we want to talk about today. But
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just really excited to have you on because this is an area that I remember when I first I think I went to FSA back in 2015 with the Fertility Society of
Mhm.
Australia, and they were
Mhm.
talking about how the quality of sperm and the quality of eggs, but particularly this one, they were talking about the quality of sperm and how much it impacts that child's kind of outcomes and like
That's right.
how sort of how it's just scientific it is. Like it's like this. They're more statistically likely for X, Y, Z.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
sperm's just a biomarker, in
Yeah.
terms of male health. So
Yeah. That's right.
same with eggs. But look,
Eggs.
I think it's just really like so important to, for people to understand that, because there's so much they can do. They've got so much power.
That's right. And that it is a couple's journey. It is about the two of them together. Even as far as early recurrent miscarriage, for example, women are generally kind of always blaming themselves, but so often it's male factor that can relate to that very early miscarriage, and it just gets overlooked. So, it's incredible that.
And I think we're still kind of in those kind of patriarchal lens where we see that they just say, oh, your sperm's fine. And then anyway, we'll get into it. But
exactly.
it's really often needs like a more thorough investigation.
Yeah.
All right. True. So you've been practicing for over a decade, and you really like to have like an integrative approach at Darling Health, where conventional and complementary medicine. How does your holistic kind of approach, how does your approach, do you think, kind of really help patients?
Well, I think for the most part in my practice, it's really just about bridging the gap between the two, between mainstream medical approach and obviously, general kind of the people. Especially in our clinic, we do sort of really work with a lot of complexities. So a lot of our patients might already be undergoing assisted reproductive technology and IVF. So we're often kind of we're meeting in the middle. And I guess sometimes with the medical approach, it can often be sometimes, a one size fits all kind of remedy, which you and I both know that doesn't work or doesn't always work. So we're sort of working with an individual or a family for their specific needs. We're treating the person as a whole. We're really kind of working with them that what's achievable for them, what's practical and realistic for them, what makes them feel amazing. They're coming to me and telling me what their goals are. So I'm going to work with them as opposed to telling them entirely what they need. I may always tell them what they need, but it's about the person.
That's really person-centered is what I'm hearing.
It is, absolutely. And it's also about giving them the lifelong strategies. It's not just that one or many pills approach. I mean, I might throw a few supplements at them, but our ideal goal is to actually give them those lifelong strategies as we're talking about education around it. That's right, about the lifestyle and kind of making those changes. But and often it's because we're dealing with people that are undergoing huge stressful events like IVF, but no one's actually treating their stress or they're are looking at their diet or anything like that. So
sure.
Well,
I'd love to hear a little bit about, I guess, like the basics in terms of can you elaborate a little bit about the importance of different kind of dietary and nutritional factors? So I think one thing we're talking about antioxidants and organic and like different kind of nutrients that are crucial.
Yep, sure. So I think the most important thing to know is that we have DNA in our body, which is the molecules that carry our genetic information. The DNA in our body is literally listening to everything that we put into it. So the diet choices that we make can have the greatest impact not only on your health as the individual, but most definitely the health of your child. So by making some of these healthier choices as far as food is concerned, we're directly changing, or we can directly change the expression of that DNA. So a diet rich in antioxidants specifically is one of the most powerful ways to do that, because antioxidants are effectively, we say the antidote to oxidative stress in our body. So oxidative stress is where we're kind of, our body is turning over cells really, really quickly, or we're getting a lot of cells that are dying off really quickly. So antioxidants, and
that's what's in skincare, because they're trying to keep everything fresh.
Everything nice and fresh and beautiful. And so if you think about it in that way, antioxidants in themselves, they actually prevent eggs from damaging and oxidizing. And they mostly, I love them more so in the support, as you're saying, of male reproduction. So certainly antioxidants, a diet rich in antioxidants do in fact improve sperm motility, or research has shown us that it does improve sperm motility and
wiggle power for those listening.
Yep, absolutely. And the DNA fragmentation, as we call it. So we're often testing if a male sperm has DNA fragmentation, which is largely comes down to diet and lifestyle choices. And this is also, infertile men or subfertile men often have higher levels of oxidative stress. And this is, largely due to their occupation. their general exposures. So they might be smoking more, they're working with chemicals, they're riding bikes all the time. There's lots of things that can actually be impacting the health of their sperm. So these antioxidants, they're also really good at preventing some gene switching on as well. So, we basically want to include every single day in our diet, think as colorful as the rainbow. So we want vitamin A, C, E, beta carotene, and selenium is really powerful for male sperm and reducing DNA fragmentation. And I'm also throwing in lots of ubiquinol in therapeutic doses as well for both males and females. So it's just about really kind of supporting our cellular function and keeping everything intact with antioxidants.
Great. Yeah.
Now, as far as sorry, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, well, what are some of like the things that you'd be like including into your diet for antioxidants?
So I'm looking at, as I said, anything colorful. So all the purples are really powerful. All the oranges, all the yellows, the greens,
vegetables, not lollies, not colorful lollies. They won't do it.
Cacao, no, sour worms do not work. Cacao, I mean, we can all have a little bit of chocolate. We can even also have a little bit of red wine sometimes. There's some beautiful antioxidants, resveratrol in all the sort of the powerful
that's good news.
Purple vegetables. Yeah.
Just enough so it doesn't cause oxidative stress.
What was that?
Just the amount where it doesn't cause oxidative stress. So
you do definitely want good quality. That's right.
Oxidative stress, it goes the other way.
A block a day is not great. And then I guess the other thing we're looking at is the organic versus non-organic debate. That's a big thing in our world. Do I really need to eat organic, or how much do I need? Because we can't really all afford it at the moment, unfortunately. So we kind of have to pick and choose, pick our battles. But basically, the organic versus non-organic is about avoiding exposure of completely unnecessary herbicides, pesticides, and antibiotics that are going into the general production of our food and in our supply chain. So if something is organic, or if I'm honest, you can go one better, particularly with animal protein, and select animal protein that is pasture fed and finished. But if something's organic, it means that for the most part, they haven't been interfered with, or they haven't been they haven't been exposed to very harmful chemicals. They haven't been heavily sprayed. I mean, these are some of the prerequisites and criteria of having an organic produce. It's really just about kind of reducing our exposure to these harmful substances that we do know that they have incredible health impacts. So,
for sure.
These things affect our hormones, they affect our gut health, they affect our microbiome. So, choosing organic where you can is
for sure. And
the
research around, sperm decline, it's declined so is it 50%?
50%. Yep.
Over the last 20 years. And that's now been kind of very strongly linked to, the exposure of things like BPAs, but also chemicals and pesticides. So all of these things, we know it has a massively impactful part in reducing fertility. So I think sometimes it's kind of like, it's kind of like a nice thing to do, but it can actually make a really big impact. So
it does. And we all appreciate as well, like I certainly can't afford an entirely organic diet, but I have my non-negotiables. And most definitely when it comes to animal protein, most definitely when it comes to anything that I can sort of peel and wash off. I'm comfortable if it's not an organic option, but
things like your potatoes and bananas.
Bananas. Potatoes I do still tend to put because they've got a thin skin. So admittedly, potatoes, I'm still kind of somewhat selective around those, or I'm giving them a really good wash. But your bananas and anything that you can peel, or your oranges and mandarins.
Definitely things like your berries and your salad stuff.
Blueberries, for sure.
Non-organic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, where you can. Yeah.
Great.
And then the nutrients, I think we were talking about the non-negotiables for nutrients for fertility. So like this is a really hard one for a nutritionist because of course I'm going to say they're all really important, and they are. But I guess if I had to pick 3, because we don't have all day, of course we all know about folate, and most definitely that is the most critical nutrient for fertility. And not just for pregnancy. It's, it's for not just for the baby and the pregnancy, but again, it kind of comes down to maybe why sometimes couples might be having problems with fertility is they have certain gene mutations that affect their folate metabolism. So folate's really important because it in itself is responsible for the production of DNA. let alone preventing some of those defects, as we know as neural tube defects in our babies. So choosing the right folate is really important. I think you've actually covered this before in one of your Making It on Mondays with my amazing colleague, Amanda Harbright. She talks about the appropriate folate to choose and what to look for.
Yeah, she talks a lot about like if anyone wants to kind of go back and have a look, she talks a lot about like selecting a good prenatal vitamin and the levels you need of different things. So yeah.
Then my second up would be iron for everything: oxygen transport, immune health, hormone health. To have healthy periods, you need to have a good quality iron on board, general energy. Postpartum, most definitely. Like, I'm always looking at iron in a pregnancy, particularly towards the last trimester, just to really reduce that postpartum risk of hemorrhaging or blood loss. And also it's really crucial in the very early stages for bub's development. They really get iron from mum if she is breastfeeding. So that's crucial to have on board. And then lastly, as far as the most important nutrient would be choline, one of our new faves. We always come up with these. Once we discover new research, we just love it and get into it. But choline in itself plays a really significant role in fetal brain development and also that gene expression that I keep sort of talking about. It's really great for cognition too, actually. So, lots of choline-rich foods in the diet for preconception. It does help with the formation of the spinal cord, the placenta, and just has a really beautiful general protective effect during pregnancy as well. So lots of eggs, chicken.
Yeah, eggs. Yeah, that's what I thought, eggs and chicken. Yeah.
Liver, if you're open to it. Red meat, broccoli. Yeah, that's one of my faves. So I think overall, if I was just to try and encapsulate my perfect diet or my ideal diet, would be something like the Mediterranean diet. Lots of beautiful color, fresh fruit and veg, good quality animal protein. So a beautiful slow cooked lamb is always our fave. Great good fats, including all the olive oils and the avocado. Lots of ancient grains instead of depending on gluten for our carbohydrates. I think that's, I think it actually just needs to be kept as simple as possible. Food doesn't need to be complex, and it certainly doesn't need to be processed. Buy all the staples, have them all in the fridge. You just make a meal out of whatever veg it is that you've got and whatever animal protein. As much as I love nutrition and I love food, I'm definitely not a chef. And I don't think food needs to be complicated. We don't need to make, amazing. I mean, they're delicious, but you don't always have to follow a recipe. It's just about keeping it as least processed as possible and keeping it as simple as possible.
Yeah,
really.
For sure. Yeah, I think my favorite dinner always is just roast veggies and roast salmon. That's like my favorite.
Perfect.
It's just it's so
too easy.
Like so delicious. I never get sick of it, and I always kind of get disappointed when we haven't had it for a while.
Because you feel, don't you feel good when you have it too? You feel satiated. You feel like you've done something for yourself.
With some steamed greens.
Chef's
Actually, I always remember a recipe you gave me years ago when we worked together, Carmen, which was the cauliflower mash.
Oh yeah. That's one of my faves.
Mash, where you steam it with a little bit of garlic. You put the garlic in, and then you
butter
it and a bit of butter, and it's delicious
it's so good.
I think you're having mashed potatoes, but it's amazing.
It's delicious.
It's become one of my staples.
Oh, that's nice. It's great. And I'm just going to touch on coffee very, very briefly, because I'd hate to take anyone's coffee away. Certainly if someone told me not to have coffee, I'd be a bit cranky with them. But I always get asked the question, does coffee really affect pregnancy? And I'd be lying if I said no, it doesn't. Certainly we do know that it's implicated in some fetal health, mostly placental. Your placenta doesn't really love it. But, I think if it was a ritual and it wasn't all the time and it was every now and then that you had that really nice mindful cup of coffee, if you really needed it, there are worse things. There's definitely some benefits to coffee, but it's one of those hard ones when I get asked about it.
And in terms of kind of reducing toxic burden, what are some of the other things that you'd recommend kind of avoiding in everyday life?
Yeah, it's a really big one to navigate, to be honest with you, and one that I'm really passionate about. So there's plenty of good resources out there. Tabitha McIntosh, another incredible fellow naturopath, has a wonderful book or resource called One Bite at a Time. So I think getting that and reading that is an incredible resource. I actually also focus on it a lot in our Flourishing Bodies program, which I think we'll get to later on. But basically what you're doing is a really good app as well. There are plenty of great apps that you can actually have on your phone to help you identify when you're in the supermarket, is this good or not so good? But what we're looking for is, again, those herbicides, pesticides, preservatives, plastics, BPA, phthalates. So we find them in our food, we find them in our body care products, and even on our supermarket receipts, believe it or not. So if ever you're being offered to have a supermarket receipt, unless you really need it, I would generally say no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. So not only looking
at sending our supermarket receipts to us digitally.
I know, totally. Yeah, I mean, we can do our own shopping, so surely we do our own checkout. Surely we can email ourselves the receipt. Yeah,
to us.
I know, it would be great. But we need to be looking at also our environment, not just the food that we're eating. So we are talking things like fragrances, candles in the house, our EMF exposure, so keeping our phones out of our bedroom. Yeah, electromagnetic
fields for those who don't know.
So all your Wi-Fi and any of your devices, keeping them away as much as you can. Certainly not having.
You spend a long periods of time.
Pop them all in the kitchen. You don't need them. You're asleep. No laptops on your laps, boys, especially. Just really trying to reduce your occupational exposure where you can. So if there's PPE that you can be wearing, or coming home and showering off straight away, and so that you're leaving your shoes at the door, so that you're not actually bringing all of those things into your household. There's plenty of amazing natural body care products out there as well. So the things that you're putting on your body. One of the biggest things I would be suggesting, particularly with our women, would be introducing organic cotton pads, maybe using period undies or cups instead. Yeah. And if we are using tampons, because of course we need to at times, then most definitely using an organic cotton tampon. Yeah. And that's particularly in the instances of where you do have, endometriosis or polycystic ovaries. That's really important. And I think the other thing to do in terms of reducing your exposure is keeping your big elimination channels open. So really kind of encouraging your liver function and your gut function. So again, lots of those green leafy vegetables, seeking advice. Maybe there is some herbal therapeutics or just other ways that you can be constantly flushing out your elimination channels. So saunas are great for that. Just really, if it's one little thing, and especially plastics as well, not, opting for glass and not reheating your food in the microwave.
It as well. I didn't realize years ago that freezing was just as bad as putting the hot stuff in there.
Freeze them in glass as well.
Yeah, so that's another big one. And just for the listeners out there, we do have a link on our website. It's called Helpful Links, and there we have Darling Street Health, which is where Carmen's coming from. We've also got one to around kind of like all these things that we're talking about. I can't remember what the link's called exactly, but it's about around kind of like reducing your kind of chemical load. So there's some real helpful resources there if you want to kind of like find out a bit more.
And I'd be happy to also share later some of the links to apps and things like that too, and some other podcasts and websites of some of those things that we can use. There's one called The Chemical Maze, I think is really quite incredible. There's Additive Free Lifestyle ladies that I work with quite closely. They're amazing. They have an app themselves, and they're really good, particularly for preservatives, because they have a huge impact on brain health and behavioral disorders and what have you.
Great. Awesome. That'd be amazing. So I'm just realizing we're kind of coming towards the end. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your Flourishing Bodies. So Flourishing Bodies offers like kind of some self-paced nutritional courses for all ages and all stages of life. Can you tell us a little bit more about the initiative? Especially because you're focusing on this kind of a super solid start, flourishing through childhood. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired it and what the participants can sort of expect to gain
from that? Yeah, sure. So It came about when I was pregnant, and my very close friend is also a mother of 3 thriving boys, keeping her very busy. And she's a beautiful home economist. She's a functional nutritionist as well. But again, we kind of really realized that there was a huge gap in the market in terms of having this type of information available to people who actually need it. You know, not everyone can sit in a consultation room with me, and I can only treat people one-on-one. So I just really wanted to provide the platform where anyone and everyone could access this kind of information. And a super solid start, Flourishing Through Childhood. So that came about again because, as I mentioned, you know, having babies myself, I really realized, oh, there's not a lot about that. I knew some of this stuff, but there wasn't really a lot out there that everybody else could access. So I really wanted parents and families to know how to impact a child's health from the get-go when you're first starting solids. And whilst there's a lot of great resources out there, beautiful books and other websites and things, we really focus on the why. You know, why do we want to give them egg yolks first? Why do we want to give them, you know, liver first? What foods is it, and why we're doing it, how we're setting up their immune system, how we're setting up their microbiome, how we're preventing things like allergies and eczema and psoriasis, and what you can do if your bubs had heaps of antibiotics and you know, maybe they were a C-section baby and they've missed out on some of that essential bacteria. You know, things that we can do to sort of help support that and rectify that, and know that you can actually do these very easily in the comfort of your own home. Like, they don't have to be expensive tasks. It's
so
about
it's really like a how-to guide for like
how-to guide, and all through the lifespan. So we will have preconception and pregnancy. We're working on a teenage program at the moment.
Right, great.
Yeah,
So you do Flourishing Bodies as well.
Sorry,
do preconception stuff as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing course. Well, you definitely have to pop the links in.
I will.
In the we'll pop it in on the Facebook group so people can
Thank you.
get in touch with that and check it out. It sounds amazing. So good having these online resources these days.
Yeah,
so people, you know, like, so much more accessible.
Well, that was me. I had issues with my little boy in terms of his feeding in, you know, oral kind of development, and I was that mama madly Googling, looking for help. So I thought, why I should be doing the same thing for people.
Great.
Yeah,
that sounds like a really helpful resource. And I guess just in closing, I guess it'd be lovely to just hear a little bit about like your future aspirations in terms of the field of reproductive health and family well-being. And if you've got any other upcoming projects or things like that.
Well, it is continuing on with Flourishing Bodies. I love epigenetics and learning more around what is, you know, as especially now as we are seeing a lot of, you know, ADHD, behavioral disorders. It's kind of, where is that coming from? And I really love looking at all that research. Certainly anything we can do for egg quality and sperm quality, I'm always looking into. You know, I think the main thing really, as far as those navigating fertility journey overall, that I'm really passionate about is remembering, again, as I said, that every single cell in our body reacts to what we're doing. So even making some small but very consistent changes really can change the direction of your health and your fertility and the future generation that you're creating. And I always say to my patients when we're talking about where we can go with this and what we can do, it's actually like treating yourself as if you're already pregnant in a way. You know, what would you be doing if you're already pregnant? And the most thing would be that, as we know, fertility journey is really hard. And we know that couples that are trying to conceive, they carry so much love in their hearts that they really just want to give it out to this future little human being, just to make sure in these instances that you actually give some of that love back to yourself. And so that's really about looking after yourself. I'm getting a little bit emotional, you know, really treating yourself as valuable as you are, as the valuable person that you are.
That's one of the things we've talked about in one of these Making It Mondays. What you're explaining, it's a similar kind of concept. It's like being like getting your mum mindset on, like being like a mum to yourself, right? First, like looking after yourself, nurturing yourself, being like a nice mum to yourself in terms of the way you talk to yourself when you're trying to conceive, you know? And just like how you kind of like look, how mum would look after you, you know?
That's right. If you're sitting there beating yourself up because you're like, oh, damn, I haven't been eating organic eggs, that's fine, you know? We can always move forward and make that change, and it's okay, sweetheart. You'll be That's right. What would you say to your little self? Yeah. It's so true.
And I really love that. I think that's really
me too.
I think it's really healing for all of us, whether or not you grew up with a really like, you know, someone who was like that kind of like mum nourishing figure. We've all got to like learn or develop and I guess reinforce that really nice mother voice in our head, our inner mother, and support our inner child, you know, through these really challenging times where often it, you know, these things are really kind of playing out quite a lot in terms of feeling stressed, and that, you know, that little person inside you is kind of going, this isn't fair, I feel alone and this is hard and it's not fair. So support yourself with that that nice mum voice.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. It's been
a pleasure.
Really such a great rundown.
It's never long enough, is it, really? We could talk for hours.
Thank you very much. We'll leave some links for people underneath in the Facebook group underneath this chat, but I'm sure everyone's found it really super informative and helpful. And thank you very much, Carmen from Darling Health. It's been great having you on. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. See ya. Bye.